Let me start over. Okay. Heavenly Father, please bless everybody on this call. Help help us to learn and understand everything that you want us to see. Send us your Holy Spirit so that we can discern. Bless all of our families and help us to have a good and peaceful Shabbat. We pray in Yahusha's name. Amen. All right. So everybody can still hear me, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we starting back on Genesis 4:8. And again, if you want to have something to say, just stop me. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond thou shalt be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat Mehujael, and Mehujael begat Methusael, and Methusael begat Lamech. And Lamech took unto him two wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. And Ada bare Jabal, and he was the father of such as dwell in tents, and such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech, hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son and called his name Seth. For Yah said, She hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of Yah. So right here in which one is this? When he sets the mark on him in 4:12, is that one? No, it's where did he set that mark on him? Oh, that slayed me. So where it says there that he set a mark on him, which one? Well, I believe it it was Jasher. The book of Jasher said that it was he was shaking. Is that the one that it said, Gary? I believe it was Jasher that said that. That it was
It was
like
what?
it gave him like a violent shake, like that was the sign.
That was the book of Adam.
Oh yeah, that was the book of Adam and Eve that said that. That's what that was. Okay. Got you. So we don't really know exactly what the sign was. Some say that he was like the first leper. But we know that it's not a spiritual sign, as which is what I was taught, in the Christian church. We were taught that it was, more of a spiritual thing. But for it to be a mark set on him so that people can see that, you know, it's distinctively him, it had to be a physical sign. It couldn't have been something spiritual.
What verse is that again?
Says, "Finally, he shall slay me." And where was that?
Or he said
15.
that about slaying him.
15.
Oh, on 15. Yeah, so on Genesis 4:15, that's where he said that the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. So it had to be something that would set him apart. People would have had to know it was him.
And
Yeah,
in his
I found it
punishment,
interesting.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
He still had mercy on him.
Mm-hmm.
Even in his punishment, he still made sure that, you know, it wasn't more than he could bear.
Definitely. Okay, this is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God had created man in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness after his image, and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. So that part is important also, because a lot of people think that it was just, you know, Cain and Abel and Seth, and they wonder where Cain's wife came from. But it was obviously one of his sisters. And it, you know, it says here that Adam lived all of this time and begat sons and daughters. And obviously some of them were unnamed, but he definitely had multiple children. We can't really assume how many, but we know that it's, you know, it's at least the three sons that we know plus more sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. And Seth lived 105 years and begat Enos. And Seth lived after he begat Enos 807 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam, where's my Seth? And all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enos lived 90 years and begat Canaan. And Enos lived after he begat Canaan 815 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enos were 905 years, and he died. And Canaan lived 70 years and begat Mahalalel. And Canaan lived after he begat Mahalalel 840 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalalel lived 65 years and begat Jared. And Mahalalel lived after he begat Jared 830 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. And Jared lived 162 years, and he begat Enoch. And Jared lived after he begat Enoch 800 years and begat sons and daughters. Now, obviously, a lot of these names are the same. I know it because it just said that Cain had an Enoch also, but not to be confused with, this is the Enoch that we're talking about, that walked with God. So,
So this is out of the line of Seth.
yes, that's where the yes, because this is all the line that we're going down to Noah, and that whole line came through Seth. Yep. And so, and all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. And Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with Yah, and he begat Methuselah 300 years. And Enoch walked with Yah after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with Yah, and he was not, for Yah took him. And Methuselah lived 187 years and begat Lamech, another name that was in the line of Cain as well. But this is the Lamech that is, still in that line of Noah. And Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 782 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. Methuselah being the oldest living person in the Bible. And Lamech lived 182 years and begat a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, the same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. And Lamech lived after he begat Noah 595 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So I've had this conversation before also, because I believe that this verse is basically saying that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were triplets. I can't, because it just says that Noah was 500 years. So there's only two conclusions that you can draw from this. Either Shem, Ham, and Japheth all had different mothers, or they were triplets, because he had all of them when he was 500 years old. That's important because going later on, when we have the flood with Noah, there was only 8 people, that were on that ark. And so it seems as though they did all have the same mother. Now, Shem was probably the oldest, the firstborn out of those 3 triplets, because it does, hint to Shem being the one, of the inheritance. But that's also debatable, because there's times that they refer to Japheth as Japheth the elder. But I believe personally that they are triplets and that Shem is the oldest. Did you want to say something?
Verse 29.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
What his name and what it means?
Is that what that means? And he called his name Noah, saying, this same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. I just don't understand that right now.
I think that's what, they're saying, the name Noah.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
That's what Noah means.
Is that he's bringing them comfort, because the ground was cursed, because of the blood of Abel. Go ahead.
But how does he bring comfort? Because it's renewed after the flood?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not cursed anymore after the flood?
So it's just the world was cleaned, but also I want to point out that all of these patriarchs that were all living 900 something years, they all died, before the flood. And so it was like the righteous people were put to sleep, and then you had Noah and his family that were going to continue to the next, and the next chapter in mankind. But if there wasn't any righteous people that perished in that flood. And that's a scary thought, because with only having 8 people on that ark, the prophecy that Messiah says is that, in the end it'll be as the time of Noah. And it's like, that doesn't, say that there will be that many saved, if you look at it that way. Because if it's like the time of Noah, in the time of Noah there was only 8 people. And so that means, got to get in where we fit in. All right. All right. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So I'll stop there. And I don't know how everyone on the call feels, but I know for most of us that I've spoken to, we are all in agreement that that means that angels corrupted themselves and laid with daughters of men and produced abominations. I don't know if anyone disagrees and if they would like to state their case on that, but that's pretty much what we get from the book of Enoch as well. That's what we get from the book of Jude, that these angels definitely did fornicate with human women and produce giants, as 6:4 says. Can you guys hear me?
I don't disagree. I don't even need
Okay.
to read Enoch to believe
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty clear, right here it says there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And so, obviously these offspring were strong, um, and they were huge. They became giants, and this is partly why we needed the flood to clean the earth.
that. Well, a
And
theory,
Yas, go ahead.
a theory is that a lot of the pagan gods, like Greek gods and Roman gods and all the other civilizations, it could be those giants or offsprings of fallen angels with human women that had special abilities, and then people thought they
Yes,
were gods, and then they gave them
I
names, and then it became mythology. So now it's thought as if it was movies or entertainment, but it was actual facts, you know.
I agree. And so when you look at, Greek and Roman mythology, which is really what Western, thought is based on, that is that's what what they're saying is that the father of the gods, like of Zeus and all them, were the Titans. So we're talking about giants even then, and so it's all just the same story told, in a different way by different people. And if you're familiar with the story of even with Pandora, um, Pandora was basically modeled after Eve. If you get a chance to read about Pandora, it says that she was formed out of the clay, out of the ground, and then when she was given a box, she opened the box, and out of that box came, all of the trials and tribulations and plagues, and every bad thing came out of this box. And so it's a little hyperbolic, but it's definitely a reference to Eve, through those Greco-Roman mythologies. Now, people, that are atheist, or, people that are, other religions, would say that it's the other way around, that we got our stories based off of these Greco-Roman mythologies, but we know that's not true because ours is the first, it's the oldest. So, these scriptures have been copied and rewritten and, done. That's why you've got the Epic of Gilgamesh and everything with the stories of Noah, and it's just them retelling these stories. But this is still the first and the original. And so,
Well, I think that's where we
go
go
ahead.
back to the Torah and the commandments,
Hmm.
because every civilization has stories of their spiritual beliefs and who they believe the creator is and all of that, right?
Yep.
But the unique difference is the commandments, right?
Yeah.
That's
The
what
law.
sets it apart. And the fact that people could be grafted in, then is even better, right? So
Definitely. And it's, you know, I don't, it's those gods, if you read, you know, Greco-Roman mythology, they're wicked, you know. Like those were some terrible gods to have to worship. You know, we have our Yah that, like you said, those laws, he's basically given us a playbook on how to please him. You know, you just gave us a cheat sheet. It's just, you know, we don't, you know, as a people, we just don't follow it. But he gave us exactly what to do in order to please him.
well, but and then the good thing is the good news is he then also gave us his Holy Spirit, which if we walk in the Spirit, then we harvest the fruit of the Spirit, to which there is no law, right?
Mhm.
If you are always walking in the Spirit and harvesting the fruit of the Spirit always, then there's no way you could break a law, right? So
Yeah.
that's why.
All right. And so, and Yah saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord. I want to see what that says right there. So, repented, to be sorry, to console oneself, regret. Okay. And it repented the Lord that he made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And Yah said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with Yah. That's where I believe it's another hint that the angels fornicated and, you know, produced giants, because right here it says that Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. um let's look at that, generations. And so it says that he was perfect in his dwelling period age. Is that what you're getting? Those living during a certain period. So it seems to me that Noah, if you let me look at that other one, because that is the Strongs. Well, you have the what's that, the Browns.
Driver.
So in the the Browns driver Briggs definition, it says that the generation means descendants, genealogical list of one's descendants, one's contemporaries. So another way to look at that is that their bloodline hadn't been touched.
Okay.
And so that's the difference, is that the Most High wanted to start the world anew and wanted nothing to do with the abominable, you know, blood that came from the Nephilim and the fallen angels. Um, I don't know what else it could have meant when it said perfect in his generations. Just meaning that his genealogy was clean. And Noah begat three sons. Go ahead.
Yeah, the three sons basically hadn't didn't come from that. Yeah, what he meant before. I agree.
Yep. From that wicked line. And so Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And Yah looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. And so for all flesh, that's including the birds and the beasts and everyone. So that's why so many things had to be wiped out. And Yah said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood, rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door above the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee will I establish my covenant. There's another hint of the law, right? Noah was given the law. I will establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. And every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort, shalt thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and that shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus Noah did according to all that Yah commanded him, so did he. And Yah said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, male, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. So the sevens there, that that can be a little bit confusing, because the sevens, I don't, I wasn't sure if that meant 14 of, the clean animals, male and female, or if it was 7 and it was just maybe 1 male and 6 females. I don't know. I didn't know how that worked. But in the Apocrypha, I want to say it was in Jasher, they said that it was the sevens, that it was 14 of the clean beasts that were there. I also want to point out, for those that haven't read the book of Jasher, that in the book of Jasher, it describes these animals as cubs. So we're not talking about full grown alligators and elephants and all of these things that would be a pain to deal with. These would have been younglings. They would have been, small, manageable animals. Every painting I'm sure you've ever seen shows these full-grown giraffes somehow walking into this ark. That's foolishness. They would have all been like very, very young, because that not only makes them more manageable, but they eat less. And so the trip would have been way more manageable with a bunch of small animals as opposed to full grown beasts. You had to say something?
I think it's also funny. I don't know how many people here grew up in the church or in Christianity, but every child is taught the story of Noah's Ark, and everyone has an image of this ark and these pairs of animals. But I think it's crazy that though the pairs of animals with 2 by 2 were actually the unclean animals. And I just feel like that was another way to kind of hide
the law. Most definitely.
Because it's kind of like not indoctrinating, but there was never any mention of the 7 clean animals, even though it's right there in the Bible.
Yeah.
When you think back, I mean, every child grew up coloring those pages or, having those little Bible books, and it's never the clean animals. And no one ever even touches on it, on the clean animals, on the 7 pairs.
They don't talk about, because again, like we said, just from when it said that I will make my covenant with you, that's, that's when he gave him these laws, and Noah would have had to have known the dietary laws just to know what was clean and unclean. And that is the gut punch to everybody that wants to eat pork. Like if you have a bunch of children reading, somebody is going to get the notion somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute. Why are they clean and unclean back then, but they're not clean and unclean today? Someone's going to have that question. And so they completely remove that from Christianity, because again, Christianity has done away with these laws, for the most part. So they don't want any reminders. And then I also find it interesting that it's also the number 7, which we see is one, is a very, often used number in the Most High's, plans. You've got some of those numbers like the number 12, and the number 7 that you see over and over again. And it's like, there's these reminders, and when you look at, just like how I was talking about sevenfold with Cain, and then 70 and sevenfold with Lamech, all of these 7s, it's like he's reminding you of the Sabbath, like that number 7 that they choose to forget, that they don't want to bring up. And so it's all against Christian doctrine to really magnify those particular verses.
Yeah, and the clean animals, that this is before Exodus.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is well before that the law had come, and that's what we were talking about, last week, for those that weren't on the call, was that the law, from the moment Cain and Abel, like we believe that Cain, killed Abel, because the whole problem was the fact that Cain did not bring his first fruits. Abel brought the first fruits of his flock. Cain did not bring the first fruits of his. And so that just goes to show that the law has been established since the very beginning, and it continues here. The covenant was remade with Noah, and Noah given these laws. And as you can see, like I said, he had to have known what was clean and unclean just to determine what was coming on the ark. And, they need 14 of the clean animals, because everyone's eating that. Other animals are eating some of those animals. The humans would have been eating some of those, and everybody's eating of those. That's why you would have needed more of those.
That, and also, if we go back to the first chapter, then we talked about the tree that they shouldn't eat out of, right? And that some people teach that it's really just a spiritual concept. It wasn't a physical eating, right? And then we go forward, and Abel and Cain, and it's related to food as well, which is the offering, right? The agriculture, the fruits and veggies, and then the livestock, right? And it has both spiritual and physical realities. Like it was actual food, but it obviously you could tie it to spiritual things too, right?
Definitely.
And then going forward, and now you got Noah, and He's talking about the clean animals. Okay. And nowadays they say, okay, that's no longer important because um, the spirit is what's important. So really, in the New Testament, He's made everything clean, so it's no longer unclean. But if we even look at back in Noah's time, people lived longer, right? And
Oh yeah.
we got all the historical biblical figures that are like 800 years, 700 years, 900 years, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So if they already knew then that those animals were unclean, it maybe have something to do with their diet was better, right? And that's without even counting, of course, how food has been changed throughout history. So now the corn that we eat today is not the same as the one that maybe didn't even exist back then. Whatever, we don't know. But to say that eating unclean doesn't impact your body anymore, it's like it's just trying to avoid it, the benefits of the law, because at the end of the day, the commandments is for our good. You know.
Definitely. And I can tell you that personally, you know, that has to be a physical curse because it says the ground was cursed for the fact that it had to open its mouth and swallow the blood of Abel. And I can tell you that, my plants don't grow themselves. Like we have some trees in the back there that are giving us some real problems with some of the fruits coming. And if it wasn't for Cain, that those would have just grown. They would have been, and for Adam, because there was also a curse when Adam got kicked out of the garden. These things used to just grow and self-water. Now we have to go and we have to toil. And so, I got papaya trees, I got mango trees, and we have to work them. They don't just do, we have to go in there and work them. So that has to be a physical curse. You wanted to say something?
It seems like it's clear that they wanted more clean animals to survive the flood than unclean animals, whether it be for eating, sacrificing clothing, materials, because you also
Correct.
couldn't touch and deal with the unclean
The carcass, you're
skins
absolutely
and all
right.
of that.
Yeah.
But then it's still interesting to me that the unclean ones still made it.
Well,
Because why? Just like there were little things, like our imperfect humans were in the ark and still
mhm.
made it, because these people were still not perfect, even though Noah, it says that he was perfect in his generations. Whatever you think that might mean, his sons might have not been perfect, the wives might have not been perfect there, so there was still things that made it pass through from
Yeah.
the old world to the next that might have not been so kosher.
Mhm.
And I don't know. Why would
So
there be a need for the
there's a
unclean?
definite need for the unclean, and
It's
I'll
like,
tell
is
you
it a
right now.
choice? Is it free
No, so
will? Is
that's
it
that's the
about,
thing. You touched on a lot just right there. So I'll start with what you said because that was true. That yes, not just for food, we would have been clothing ourselves in the skins of clean animals because Leviticus tells us that we can't even touch the carcass of some of these dead unclean animals without becoming unclean ourselves. And so that's a big deal. But when you look at the unclean animals and actually what it is they do, a big portion of them are here to clean the earth. So we could never do away with them. We need pigs. We needed pigs. We needed, the shrimp and the lobster and the crabs that are cleaning the ocean. We needed all of these things, and they have their purpose. Their purpose is not food, and it's not to sacrifice. It is strictly they are there for operational, and they're there in an operational capacity. They're there to make sure that the world goes round. Even when you look at some of the other, like everything that we eat chews the cud for the most part. A lot of those other animals are predators, and they eat unclean things. So we would not be eating, so like birds eagles, some of these things, they will go down and, you know, they'll eat shellfish. They'll do all of the, you know, they'll eat all of these things that we're not supposed to eat. And then, you know, just, you know, it's like it just transfers over into us. And so what we eat should be eating, you know, on the earth. But yeah, that's they have their place. Now, the second part of what you said, when you said that there were imperfect humans on that ark, and I have a theory for that. My theory for that is that when the world first started, you had that tree of knowledge of good and evil there that represented free will. So if the Most High would have just brought nothing but perfect people back into the new world, then it kind of would have taken away that free will. Everyone would have just known perfection. You needed to have that, you have to have that option. And I believe that that option was represented by Ham, you know, because we don't know everybody else in the ark, right? We don't know any of their, you know, of their exploits, but we know Ham was wicked for sure. And so, and when we look and go through the line of Ham, that's when you're talking about Misraim and all of these, and Nimrod. You're talking about a wicked line, you know, that was there. And so I feel like they had their purpose, and it was still to represent that free will. Like we have to, the Most High, it's almost like he thinks like a judge, or you know, it's like a really legalistic sort of thought like process, where it's like, you know what, you know, you're not going to be able to say that this wasn't fair because I'm going to cover all angles. And that's why I think, you know, that the imperfection, you know, of those children, because if it was just, you know, Shem, then we would have never had, you know, a Nimrod. And that was necessary. We needed to have, you know, the opposite side for it to be fair. You have to have the dark with the light, or else it's not fair, or else it's really not free choice. And so, where are we at now? We on 3. And the fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from the face of the earth. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. So that means that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were exactly 100. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of the clean beasts and of the beasts that are not clean, and of fowls and everything that creepeth upon the earth. There went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and female, as God has commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all fountains of the great deep broken up, and windows of heaven were opened. So this is saying that water was coming from above and below. And that's what made the flood so treacherous. It's not something that you could really hide from. It's not as if you could just, you know, try to climb, you know, a mountain or something, because you're not, it's the water's coming from everywhere. And you can probably imagine you won't be the only one fighting for that dry piece of land. It'd be you and a bunch of beasts trying to fight to stay alive. And it would have been, it says the fountains of the deep broke up. And so you're getting the water from both ends. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. In the self same day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them into the ark. They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, and every bird of every sort. And they went in unto the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, where is the breath of life. And they that went in male and female of all flesh, as Yah had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth. And the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both fowl and of cattle and of beast and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. All in whose nostrils was the breath of life of all that was in the dry land died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things and the fowl of the heaven. And they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. And Yah remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And Yah made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained. And the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days the waters were abated. And the ark was raised in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. Go ahead, you want to say something?
That first one it said, and God remembered Noah. Like that paints a picture in my mind, like he was upset. He was going off on this planet. And it's like, wait a second, hold on.
Yeah, but it says he says that sometimes. To cause, to remember, to mention, to take court, to make a memorial.
It's like when you're a parent and you're really upset at your child, and you're handing out some punishment, and you have to say, wait a second, this is still my child.
Yeah, and it's the same, it's similar, it was similar wording when we were talking about the Israelites in Exodus.
Yeah.
But that's why, people say that Torah, like these are the books of Moses. It's like you can kind of see the similarities in the writing style with all throughout the first 5 books, and it's all Moses and his interpretation. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. And he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her in unto the ark. And he stayed yet other 7 days. And again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from the earth. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And it came to pass in the 630th and first year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried. And Yah spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee. Go ahead.
When it says the 600 and something year, it means from what day? Like,
he's talking about in Noah's life.
Okay, the age of Noah.
Yeah, the age of Noah in this time period.
Okay.
So go forth out of the ark. Wait, where was I?
16.
16. Yep, go forth out of the ark, and thou and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth every living thing that is with thee of all flesh, both of fowl and cattle, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, every beast, every creeping thing, every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kinds, went forth out of the ark. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And that's another proof that we had the sacrificial law was already intact long before Moses, because as you can see here, he built an altar. And if you know anything about Leviticus and and just the sacrificial laws, there's even a specific way that you have to make the altar. Everything is done, the Most High has his ways, and he does not stray from those ways. When you have an altar, it's supposed to be a rock that is naturally formed. It cannot be shaped in any way by the hands of man, or else it is completely corrupted. And so the fact that it says here that that he built the altar, that means that he went and found a place where where there was a nice rock, and then he started sacrificing. And so all of these laws were already in place, which we've been talking about this whole time. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. You want to say something?
No, and there I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake. That might have been referring to the verse earlier when he said, because of Noah. What was it? Noah, because he will. No, about cursing the ground.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? I would have to go back, but it seems like
he lifted a curse.
Yes, that a curse was lifted in the ground, because when he was talking about Noah a couple chapters back, I don't remember the wording, but I should have marked it. But yeah, it seems like that's going back to that.
Okay. All right. Genesis 9. And Yah blessed Noah and his sons and said, Unto them be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Go ahead.
With the verse, be fruitful and multiply. One topic that we could discuss one day related to birthdays is that some people justify celebrating birthdays based on that verse of being fruitful and multiply. But I don't see a connection between being fruitful and multiplying, which is a commandment, right? That's some people say that's one of the first commandments or the first, I don't remember right now. Right, and I agree,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, that's the first
commandment. Be
one.
fruitful and multiply.
Hmm.
But that doesn't have anything to do with every year doing a celebration of a birthday. To me, at least, I don't see the connection.
No, I
But
don't
I
see
could,
a connection there either.
but it could be a study of,
Mhm.
celebrating birthdays one day.
Yeah, as far as that goes, I don't, I'm not against it. It's just that the one time that I clearly see them talking about, or it's not even that clear, but in the book of Job, when Job's children get killed, it said it was on his son's day. And so people believe that he's saying that it was that particular son's birthday, and that was when like he had sons and daughters all get wiped out, when the roof caved in and all of that stuff. So you have a lot of people, like I know a lot of Jehovah's Witness growing up, that they believe that that is telling them that they shouldn't keep birthdays, because the one time it really mentioned someone's day, it was a complete tragedy. But I don't know that for sure. I don't I feel like we
Like I've
don't.
heard that before too, and it does sound about
Mhm.
right. It's not, I'm not sure if it's confirmed right by just what it says, but we do know from the Gospels on, I think it was Herod, his name,
Mhm.
King Herod
Yep.
birthday, and that's where they killed John the Baptist,
Mm.
right?
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because of the
And s-
birthday that
and so there, it's always
he
negative
gave.
around the birthdays, right?
No, but again, that doesn't necessarily make it a commandment that if you celebrate it, then it's a sin. Like at the end of the day, what law is being uh, broken by doing it? So I'm just saying it could be a good topic of
Yeah.
conversation one day. I'm not,
And
I don't
well,
think
what
it's
I
something
think,
that we could.
because like I said, I confess to being a legalist. With that, for me personally, comes I follow these laws, but if it's not in there, then you can't tell me it's a law, you know? And so I don't personally see anything, I don't think that there's a commandment, there's no commandment against having birthdays. And therefore, I'm not against it. Because to me, I feel like even if you're trying to add to the word, in any way, even if you think it's good. I mean, this is exactly what Phariseeism is. If it doesn't say that it's, forbidden, then I'm gonna assume it's not. Our Father is not the author of confusion, and he's pretty particular. He's very clear, when he wants us to understand something. And I just don't think we have enough evidence to think that, that that's that it's illegal, to keep a birthday, you know so every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. This is another verse where people will say that you can eat whatever you want, but we just saw him talk about what was clean and unclean. So you have to take things in context. It's when he's saying that, he's assuming that you already know that we're just talking about clean meats, because I don't think he's giving you carte blanche here to go and cut up a dog or a horse and eat it. You already know from the last couple of verses that there are such thing as clean and unclean meats. And so when he says everything that moving, every moving thing, he's referring to clean meats.
Yes.
But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. Um, that's So you're not supposed to eat blood. And surely your blood of your lives will I require, and the hand of every beast will I require it. And no, at the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man, at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of Yah made he man. And you be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply therein. And Yah spake unto Noah and his sons with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And Yah said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living thing, every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and that shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. It's crazy because it's like every time he makes a covenant with us, then the world tries to corrupt it. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about with that rainbow. It's been, most people now, when they think of rainbow, the Yah is the last thing that's on their mind. It's been completely hijacked and corrupted. Go ahead.
Further up, because whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man.
Mm-hmm.
In growing up, God was always this mysterious figure. Does he look like something? Is he just a spirit? Because it says no one has ever seen him. But I always grew up being taught that there's a reason why you don't see him, like he's not a man at all, but there's something that we must have in common with him, because to say that we were made in his image, that's a pretty strong statement. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I grew up being told he is not anything like a man.
And that's wrong. I mean, that's the thing. And I hear you, because before I came into the truth, that whole his image was more mysterious to me, because they taught us that there's no true description, of him, and that no one's seen him, and all of these things. But like, the fact is, it says multiple times that we were created in his image, so we know that we look like him. It ain't no, little green alien monster.
And what does image mean?
And so, where is image?
It's on 6.
And so, image, likeness. And so
Brown says image, likeness, mere, empty image, semblance. So yeah, it's something. It seems like it's something physical.
Oh, definitely.
And even if it wasn't physical and you wanted to say, like, but we were still, there's something in common there.
Yeah, no, well, we were made in his image, so we physically look like him. And that's also because there is descriptions of him. Revelations describes him as to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. But again, they want to repaint, this image. and the book of Maccabees talks about that. The book of Maccabees says clearly that the heathen shall take, the book of the law and paint in his own image. And that's part of the confusion. It's part of the confusion, and it's part of keeping us hidden. It's part of cutting us off as a nation. These are all the things, the curses that, they are confederate against us. And it's a worldwide conspiracy. And you can see it play out. If you just were to turn on any Christian sermon and watch these people, they will all say, we don't know this, we don't know that. But yet they will still paint this certain image, you know? And it's like, oh, you're saying you don't know, but you paint them like that. But what is actually in the book is contrary to what you're painting. And so it just goes to show that there is a conspiracy to try to keep, the, our people in the dark. And so,
That's true. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This
oh,
brother
Chuka,
Chuka. How y'all doing?
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Hey, great job. Talk on this, and that's a good verse. Melissa's talking about. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like a lot of times it would say, is the Messiah, because every time the Messiah, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, was we notice him in the New Testament, right? But a lot of times he's right here all throughout, from Genesis all the way throughout the Torah, and in the prophets. He appeared several times. To Abraham, he appeared to Daniel. Similar image, that you talk about Revelation, John, when he saw him, I mean, like here, woolly hair, arms and feet at burnt brass. The same description that he gave showed towards Ezekiel as well. So it's the same. He actually. So the Messiah is that embodiment that Paul was talking about of Yah, that physical image. So he's appeared several times all throughout the Torah to the prophets, and that he appeared again in the New Testament to come fulfill the law. And a lot of times, in Christianity, they would say, oh, the law is done away with because Jesus, Yeshua, has already fulfilled that. But the law that he came to fulfill, all the way back in Genesis 3, right? So that's when the fall, that very, command of the test of that love, do not eat of this tree. The moment you eat of this tree, your man will surely die. So he had to fulfill that law of sin and death, right? But that's why he says he never came to destroy the law, but came to fulfill it, right? So, but that's definitely that's a good one for sure. He appear. That's the image, and we are made as his image, because like all the when he says the Messiah felt all the experience that we had done, the temptations and all those tests that we experienced, or laughter, joy. When he was here, Messiah was here. He celebrated. We went to weddings, and first miracle was made into turn water into wine. Like just experience all the things that we experienced. But he was also at the same time divine. He was beyond just human being. So, but yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, this chapter here too. I'm looking here. He's also talking about be fruitful and multiply. So he pretty much started a whole, just like Adam.
Yep, he started over.
That command. Yeah, he's pretty much He's with Adam. He gave that command: be fruitful, multiply. Towards Adam spiritually. I think it was a command prior to him physically making Adam he was commanding them to be fruitful, multiply, right, male and female. So he just started, like I said, start afresh, because he started afresh with Noah and did the same thing. So it's kind of like, it's just because he's starting afresh. He wiped out the whole earth. I said, okay, let's do this again. It's kind of like playing a video game, right? When you play, that person let's say a person, lose their life, you have to start again, start afresh. So he just pretty much just like, hey, I'm starting afresh, and Noah's kind of like that. Adam starting, pretty much starting afresh again, and then we know Paul talks about actually the second Adam to the Messiah. But yeah, I'm not gonna lose. I'm trying to the track here. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, even all the way back, because we talked about this last week in Genesis, when he says, that the voice of God was walking through the gardens, that just sounds like Messiah to me. He's the word, and so he's definitely there's definitely a physical aspect, and they have hijacked that image, is basically is what happened. So 9:19. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. Oh wait, did I skip 18? Yeah. And the sons of Noah went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. So Canaan, the first grandson, was born now. And these are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread, and Noah began to be a husbandman. Let's see what that means.
Husbandman. That's like that's another word for farmer.
Yeah. So we have the Strong's says just being a man, a male, human being, servant, a champion. What does the Brown say on that one?
What
for husbandman.
There's two Strong's.
Yeah, well, there's two Strong's. Yeah, we have another one.
Which one do you have? H582?
And to be a husbandman.
Man, male, husband, husband.
I have that one. Okay, so this one says, it sounds, more like it says ground, land, piece of ground, earth, substance, land, territory. So yeah, it seems like a farmer, a tiller of the earth.
Which goes back to that curse that was lifted.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, it said because of the toil. What was? I'm gonna have to
because of the toil of that they were all basically, that it was through Noah that curse was lifted. That he provided comfort, and it said Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. So I've read in places in the Bible where nakedness means his actual wife, the nudity of his wife.
I don't think so.
So that, we'll touch on that another time, but there's a lot of conversation around that particular verse, because some people say that Ham actually sodomized his mother in this situation, and that isn't outright stated, but
I mean, in Torah, whenever it's talking about uncovering somebody's nakedness, it's talking about sleeping with somebody, having sexual relations.
It definitely talks about the wife as well.
And then also there's a section in the Bible, I don't remember where, but it talks about be not like the Canaanite, and then it goes straight into not sleeping with your sister, not sleeping with your mother, not sleeping with this, with that, with that. So I feel like that's what happened. There was sexual relations.
Yes.
And that's what that was. I'm sorry, was somebody trying to speak? I'm sorry if I cut somebody off.
No, go ahead. You'll finish up.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Nah, it's in Leviticus 18.
Mm-hmm.
It mentions every time it's talking about nakedness, it's talking about everything abomination. Sleeping with your father's wife. Like, let's say, he had a second wife. It's still considered. It's not technically your mother, but that's his wife. Or your auntie or uncle. All those things. Brother and brother. So it constantly mentions the nakedness of your brother's wife. You do not uncover. Like verse 16. It is your brother's nakedness. And I'm reading from the scriptures version. Verse 17, the nakedness of a woman and her daughter you do not uncover, nor do you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. So yeah, they are relatives. It is wickedness, or some verses say abomination. So yeah, it definitely has to do with sexual immorality. And it made me think about one of the sons of Israel, Reuben, right? Reuben, I think it was
Yes,
Reuben,
the oldest.
the
Yeah,
oldest one. He slept
he
with
defiled his father's
Israel,
bed. Yeah.
one of his wives, right? So yeah,
Mhm.
and then the curse came upon his lineage because of that. So,
Yeah, he lost the inheritance. It passed
exactly.
from him and all of his mother's sons and went to Joseph. And
Right.
Joseph
Yeah, that's
became the one that got the double portion, and that's how we got Ephraim and Manasseh and so on and so forth.
So like, and this is speaking about Canaan. Leviticus, sorry to kind of, but like Leviticus 18, I just pulled it up. Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, I am the Lord your God, according to the doings of the land of Egypt wherein ye dwelt, ye shall not do according to the land. You shall not, sorry, according to the doings of the land of Canaan, whether I bring you, shall ye not do, neither shall ye walk in their ordinance. And then, like, right afterwards, it says, none of you shall approach any who is near of kin to him or uncover their nakedness. It's like, so it's like Canaan just continued
Yes.
to just, have those
Canaanites.
habits. Yeah,
Mhm.
Canaanites. Yeah.
And it's obviously some sort of a demon that they must have had, that took that line and the sins of the father. They
Yeah.
just they ran with that. And so if we continue, it says Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And this is another verse that's always discussed because people seem to forget that that Ham wasn't the one that was cursed. They always tried to say that black people were the children of Ham, and that Ham was cursed. But if you see here, Noah obviously couldn't bring it upon himself to directly curse his son. He cursed his son's son. And again, what he says is that cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And for those of us that know, this prophecy was already fulfilled because the Canaanites were already the hewers of wood and drawers of water and all. They've already served the other Israelites.
So
yeah.
Ham
Another
is the father of Canaan. Could Canaan possibly have been Moses' wife's son?
No, Canaan was already born.
Canaan was born
Yeah,
already.
Canaan was already born.
Okay.
He was the first grandson. What were you saying, True?
so you could say this. He was like similar to like what Reuben did. You know what I mean? It's like he first did that. You know what I mean? Like slept with his father's wife, or you know what I mean? Like that's pretty much how I look at it. But yeah, just to go back to Leviticus 18, where verse 3, where it says, and do not do as they do in the land of Mizraim, Egypt, where you dwelt, and do not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I'm bringing you, and do not walk in their laws. So, first of all, it made me think about, yes, generational curses are real.
Yeah.
We definitely, there's something that cannot be ignored because, it's very important to be able to break. I don't know if you guys could hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, I guess, yeah. But yeah, the importance of breaking generational curses, is very real. Like things uh within lineage that we unaware of. You know what I mean? That's important. We know that the power of the Messiah, the blood, cleanses us, but yeah, that's so important to break things and of course, pray, intercede for ourselves. Uh, for the forgiveness for our fathers and their sins. You know, what I mean, but yeah, that's so important because you can see here. But yeah, that it passed down, through that lineage, like you said earlier. And then also it was also prophetic because through Canaan there came all the ites, right?
Yep, the Sodomites
Abiezrites, all the ites, and through them we were able to take those land from them. You know what I mean? Because of that curse, and that's how we were able to approach them and take the land, and that's how Israel, the land of Israel was formed. But yeah, it just made me think about that. Definitely the importance of breaking generational curses and then walking in generational blessings. And part of that is, of course, through prayer, believing in the Messiah, the blood of the Messiah, and then also, um, doing His commandments. Because you said that up to the third and fourth generations. You know what I mean? So,
yep.
but that just made me think about that. Let me go back. Yes, sir.
And so cursed be Canaan. So, and he said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So that's also prophetic because we believe that the Ashkenazi are Japhethites, and they are right now dwelling in the tents of Shem, which is our Israel.
Right. 100%.
And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. And all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. All right.
Tents of Shem are is
Say it again.
what do you mean? Are tents of Shem our Israel?
So
Or you said
what happened was they were divided. They divided the land. Um, and certain areas were designated for certain brothers. And Shem's land was obviously the best land because everybody wanted to steal it because Japheth dwelled in the tents of Shem, but also Canaan stole land from that area, which we ended up taking back, and we know it was Israel. But it wasn't, that was our land first. That was Shem's land before it was Canaan, and then Canaan stole it. And so that's why it says that, it says Japheth will dwell in the tents of Shem, and they're currently doing that right now.
I think in the next few chapters or somewhere, it tells you in more detail how the land was divided and who went
it
to
does.
who and where.
It goes a little bit further. When it starts telling you about Canaan was forbidden, to do, but he still went and took land.
Yeah.
That was earmarked for Shem.
Yeah. And also, I want to say, if you go back to verse 6, if you really pay attention, because Yah is very specific, especially through the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, writing through the prophets, through Moses here. But verse 26, he said, blessed be Yahweh. Yep. Got it? Okay.
Yep. God of Shem. Yep.
Yeah, it's blessed be Yahweh, the Elohim of Shem, right? And let the Canaan become his servant. So that's very specific because he says Elohim of Shem, and later on he's going to say, especially in Exodus, he repeats this every time, the Elohim of the Hebrews. But we know that a lot of the lineage of the Hebrews come through Shem, so he's very specific. He's which God he's for, you know what I mean? Out of the sons, which Elohim is for, right? So that's so important. But yeah, going back to what Andreas was talking about, verse 27, let Elohim enlarge Japheth, right? And let him dwell in the tents of Shem. And that's what's going on right now. the Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, they're really literally in control of literally everything.
World. Yeah,
I'm
they're
talking
like
about,
enlarged.
about the music industry, the movie industry, you know what I mean? Like literally, yeah. So they have their hands up, but we know that not only, are they ruling right now, because Yah allowed it because of course, the sins of our forefathers, right? And it was prophesied. And this same verse too, the Messiah, Yeshua, also repeats it in Luke. I believe it's Luke 21:24. It says Jerusalem will be trodden down by the
By
Gentiles
Gentiles, yeah.
until their time is fulfilled. Right. So that's really, before that even happened, Yah has already prophesied it here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So he's saying that, that Japheth is gonna pretty much dwell in their tents. It's gonna dwell in, it's gonna take over, trodden
Our
down our
hands.
tents. And that's what's happening right now. They're living right there in Jerusalem, in Israel. That's our tent, because we were spewed out because of our forefathers' disobedience,
Yep.
right? So we can't, go back there and trying to fight for it, like some people are trying to do, or all those things, because we can't do that. He's the one that's going to restore
Yeah.
the new Jerusalem, the new heaven, the new
Oh,
earth.
but yeah, definitely. It's completely out of our hands. It's not something we're not going to take up arms and take it by force, and that's also how you can tell that another way that you can tell that the people that are there are not the chosen people,
Oh yeah,
because they're still taking it by force
And they're doing it themselves.
as we speak, and they're doing it on their own. This is something that is supposed to be Yah's doing. And so the whole, genocide, everything that they tried to do to hold on to this land, they shouldn't have to do. And the crazy thing is, there's a good percentage of the Ashkenazi that feel this way. That not all the Ashkenazi feel that they should, be Zionists and have this Jewish state. They feel, hey, we are punished. That's why we don't have a Jewish state, and it is not up to us to, to go and obtain a Jewish state. And that's the truth. It's really not. And so you can tell that they're not those people. And like you said, from Messiah's words, that it will be trodden down by Gentiles. And what does Gentile mean? Anybody that's not Israel.
right.
And so let's go. So now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togmara. Now, that's funny because we've all this time said that the Ashkenazi were Japhethites. And here you can see the name Ashkenaz. This isn't a common name. When you hear some of these Ashkenazi scholars try to say, "Oh, we're not Japhethites. We just happen to take that name because we were living in Germany." They associate Gomer with Germany. So they feel that Gomer means Germany, and so we're sons of Germany, and so they took the name Ashkenaz. But it's like, listen, you're all Japhethites, and that's we can see where you got the name Ashkenaz from, and that's why they're called Ashkenazi Jews. And you can see the direct connection between, from Japheth to Gomer to Ashkenaz, and that's where they got their name from. They're Ashkenazi Jews. They're Japhethites.
This,
Well,
why the
remember,
Messiah talks about, he said, I know those who call themselves Jews, but they're not, but synagogues of Satan.
Yep.
He repeats that twice
He
because
does.
he knew that there was already a hijacking that was going to take place, and replacements that's going to take place, and really they're the ones been, I guess, I would say, preaching or pushing that there are the Israelites and the Hebrews, and he knew that he had to put that prophecy there through to John in Revelation to, I guess, to open the eyes of those of us who've been scattered to actually know, okay, that's who they are, and who we are. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I wrote it down too. You know, this verse 2, where it says Gomar, yeah, meaning Germany. Then yeah, this is King James. So this is, it's called Yawan, as a Javan. That means that represents Greece. And Magog, I think I wrote down Russia. I think I was doing like a study on this. Different, you know, I think Tyrus like reps this connection with Turkey. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Like, but yeah, Ashkenaz, you know, they still exist to this day, and they're Ashkenaz Jews. Yeah, but you continue.
And so that's the thing. So it's also prophetic, because in the curses of Deuteronomy, you know, what we did to the Most High when our ancestors rejected him, they didn't just reject him. They rejected him and went whoring after other gods. We made
Yeah.
him jealous, and we kindled his jealousy. And so this is payback. Like he was going, one of the part of the curses of Deuteronomy is that we will be brought to jealousy. So now you've taken us, and we went from being the head to being the tail. And then you've taken these lowly men. I forgot what word it used, but it was basically saying common men are now running things. You know, they are not of the line, and that's because we provoked him to jealousy, and this is our comeuppance. This is what, you know, we're reaping, you know, those curses now from what our ancestors did. And
Yeah.
that prophecy is still intact.
Yeah, so you know Tarshish, yeah, that's is that where Jonah was supposed to go? Or he was trying to go.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but most I had to redirect him back. And then Kittim, I think that's actually Shittim, right?
Yeah.
I think it's one of the nations that we had to fight against a couple of times, mentioned JFF. But yes, what verse you stopped in?
We're there in 10:3.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
And so the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togmara, and the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. These were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. And the sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. Now, Cush, we know, is Ethiopia, right? And Mizraim, we know, is Egypt.
Yes.
And these are the founders of those nations. And you can Google this on your own time. Even if you just Google Mizraim, you will see that they all still to this day have their cult followings. These people, like we were talking about earlier in this conversation, these people were gods to many people. This is where the pantheon of the Greco-Roman mythology and everything started, was from these people. And so I'm going to continue for a second.
And put is Libyans.
Yeah, hold on. I was going to say,
Go ahead.
Before you go there, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
By these were when he says the isles, that's another word for island.
Yep.
Of the Gentiles. So we have to understand. Yeah. So whenever, because I remember, you know, being in Christianity, they always say, you know, us as Black people, we are the Gentiles, right? But it actually specifically tells who the Gentiles is. I think he was mentioning, you know, you know, when the Messiah says, you know, Jerusalem will be trodden down by the Gentiles until their time is fulfilled. So it's specifically telling us right here who the Gentiles are in verse 5.
And it's definitely not us, because we're not trodden down Israel. They don't even want us over there.
Right. Yeah, so that's wanted to bring that up, but yeah.
And so the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah and Sabta and Ramah and Sabteka, and the sons of Ramah, Sheba and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Let's look at that word before. And so, what do you have in yours? Because I see.
It's like
Yeah.
face to
So
face
if you look at
presence.
parts, if you look at definition 6, it says almost like an adversary. So when he's saying he is against the Lord, that's basically what they're saying Nimrod was, that he was was against the Most High.
Like a face off.
Yes.
Like that, yeah.
And so I want to point out that this is the time when people's ages started to change. Like you mentioned earlier, Brother Andres, you were talking about how all of the line of Seth, everybody was living, to be 900, 800 something years. And so this is the time when these people, you know, would start living shorter lives. That part's coming up here. So it says, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Ashur and builded Nineveh and the city of Rehoboth and Calah. And Resen between Nineveh and Calah, the same as a great city. And Mitzrayim begat Ludim, and Ananim, and Lehabim, and Naphtuim. So what I was saying was, if you look at Greco-Roman mythology, then what you see is they call these gods, they call these people immortal. And so if you look at someone like Nimrod, Nimrod is what, the great grandson of Noah? He's like in a direct line, and this is the years had not been cut yet. The years were cut around the tower, right? Around the Tower of Babel. That's when he said, my spirit shall not dwell with man. And that's when he basically said that the years,
that's in Genesis. That's in Genesis 6, verse 3.
And so in 6:3.
Yeah.
And
so to 120 years he's talking about, right?
So yes, so the years had started to come down. And if you had somebody like Nimrod, who is still pretty close to the line, to that age range that Noah would have been in, because the years didn't just drop from 900 straight down to 120. It was like a progressive thing. It just went down progressively. Right. And so if you look at somebody like Nimrod, who's living to be 500-600 years old, and then you've got people that are living to be 200 years old
in the same
lifespan, then what happens is they were born and Nimrod was there. They lived a couple hundred years and Nimrod was still there. So for them, Nimrod is immortal. He's obviously immortal because he was old as hell when I was born, and he was still there when I died, And so that is where the pantheon and all these people with these immortals came from, was people like Nimrod. And you look at Nimrod, he's at the heart of so many of those other, mythologies, even, with Horus in Egypt and all of these are all basically, different variations of Nimrod.
Absolutely. Yeah, I read this book, it's called The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop. If you guys get a chance, you check it out. But that book really taught me a lot about, like you mentioned, the mythologies, like started with, Nimrod. So, the Most High really showed the guy Alexander Hislop like the breakdown, the mystery of Babylon. When the scripture talks about mystery of Babylon, it's all about confusion. But yeah, Nimrod, when he died, he was made into a deity. That's where you hear the word Baal, which means Lord of the Gods. All right, so that actually represents, Baal, like he represents him. So that's what all Christmas is all about, the rebirth of him as his son Tammuz, and then his wife Ishtar or Ashtaroth, aka Semiramis. She represents, Ishtar.
Easter as well. Easter is another variation of that name.
Yeah. So it's all about, like, yes, he's the Lord of the gods, pretty much, according to their Babylonian mythology, which has transcended to all the different empires and different cultures all the way to this day here in the United States, all over the world, just different names, in this modern time, 2025. So it still exists. So it's very interesting. But that book really helped me understand the mystery of Babylon, Satan's confusion. I call it the Matrix, to confuse the whole world, and it's still happening today. But yeah, The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop.
I always thought this image. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yeah.
I always thought this image of Nimrod was it always tripped me out, because if you notice, he's huge. Like, you've got a full-grown lion, because we can see the lion has a mane. And so you've got a full-blown lion that he has like in a headlock, like it's a little child. And so that, that begs the question, if man, when the age went down, did the size go down as well? Because it seems like men were pretty big as well back then, because Nimrod is literally got a lion in a headlock right here.
Well, he's, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I never heard of that part, but he does come from the lineage from Ham, and where a lot of, especially the Canaanites, a lot of them had that lineage of giants, right?
Well, it said that there wasn't any. It said that Noah was perfect in his generations, which means that Ham would have been, but we don't know we don't know what happened after that, because the Bible, Genesis, said that there were giants in those days and also after that. And
right,
so,
like Goliath come from that, yeah.
So somehow, some way, there must have been, giants that survived the flood. Somehow, I don't know how that works, but for it to be that there were giants in those days and after that. What were you saying, Brother Andres?
Yeah, I saw a video somewhere online one day saying that some giant, either one or multiple, held on to the ark or something like that. But that's obviously, I don't think, biblical. But yeah, we don't know, because it does say when Joshua came back to Moses, he said he saw giants, or like they were like grasshoppers or something like that. So.
And so another possibility is that that more angels fornicated. We could have had more fallen angels. We really don't know exactly where it came from, where that new line of giants came from. But
yeah, I just want to say, I think that one is just simply a statue, because you remember part of his lineage, Nebuchadnezzar, comes from his lineage, and that was what the whole statue was all about, where he built a statue and he wanted the three Hebrew boys and everybody else to bow down to it. So a lot of times they made a lot of statue of these kings, just like the pharaohs and all that. So I think that one is there, but he was definitely reverenced, because the scripture actually say he's a mighty hunter. And one of the things I learned in that book, because he was a mighty hunter, so he was big on carrying arrows and spears and all those things. And when he hunts his prey, he would take off their skin, whether it's leopard skin, or he kept a lot of horn artifacts. So a lot of times when the devil is just being described, whether in TV or art picture, they normally put a horn, to show forth the devil. So because that come from Nimrod, it's all confusion, but Nimrod capturing all these horns, and because of that, that's where, because remember, he's made into a god, Baal.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is behind the scenes all Satan, representation of Satan. So he was like a human embodiment of Satan later on as Baal. So he captured a lot of horns, And then the Cupid are, like from the Roman Empire, the Cupid that carries the bows and arrow. That's also a representation of him, because he carries a lot of arrows. Hunting is, his prey. But yeah, and then I think Ares in the Greek mythology as well, who was about horns, similar about love and chasing after, I guess, shooting, to get, to win over their love, right? So, but these are all confusion mythology, but is definitely a lot of it surrounded about with Nimrod being a mighty hunter and all that stuff, and he conquered many nations. He was the first, like Caesar or Pharaoh or Alexander the Great, that followed after him. But yeah.
And I do want to point out that, when they say that we were of the cursed line of Ham, I'm not saying that Ham's line was not melanated. Because like we can look at this picture of Nimrod right here. I mean, we know it's not an exact picture of him, but he's always depicted with like a nappy beard, And so these are all, and I say that to say that all of Noah's children were melanated.
That's right.
There really wasn't, for them to just try to say that all Black people came from the cursed line of Ham, is false, because we, all of those lines were melanated. We do feel that Japheth, is where we get the Caucasians from, but that's because the word Caucasian comes from the Caucasus Mountains, and that's dead where we're talking about in Gomer, like in Germany, like that whole, the Isles of the Gentiles, that's where the Caucasus Mountains are. And so, that's probably what happened, and where they got their complexion from was the simple fact that they were cave dwellers. And so when you're dwelling in a cave, in order for you to absorb a sufficient amount of vitamin D, you're probably going to lose melanin, whereas with us, we're people that are that were in the sun. And so our melanin, not only do we absorb it, but it also, we can block it and protect ourselves. And so it's not accurate to assume that, one line of Noah was Black, white, and Chinese. That's what most people say is Black, white, and Asian. They always make it seem like it's those three. Go ahead. You want to say something?
We went to, quick side note, we went to we were in Kentucky, and we went to the Noah's Ark exhibition, the Noah's Ark Museum, and that's exactly how it was. They have all these figures of Noah and his children, and there's an Asian looking one, a Black looking one, and a white looking one.
And I'll guarantee that the Black looking one was Ham.
Yes, the Black looking one was Ham.
Yep. I mean, Ham means Black, so we know. I'm not disputing that he was Black at all, because that's that's true. But just the fact that they try to hide not only our origins but theirs as well.
Yeah, and I believe that's why Yah spoke through the prophets, describing, the Messiah himself, being arms and feet of burnt brass, because he knew that there's going to be a point of time that they're going to make all these changes, right? Not only change the color of the skin of the Messiah himself, or Yah himself, as well as the people of Israel, his people, and the people back then, but also, of course, to change the laws and times and seasons, as mentioned in Daniel. But yeah, there's a reason why he repeats it. I believe Enoch also mentions, describe him as having woolly hair. And then he talks about in Daniel 10:6. I actually mentioned this on recently on my YouTube channel, showing a description of the Messiah, right? He was Black, and he's proudly mentioning that because, Yah, he knows the future. He knew there was going to be a point of time that they're going to make some changes of what he actually looked like, and that he know that's not who he is. Just like he says, I know those who call themselves Jews, but not synagogues of Satan. So it's kind of like he's just letting us know that's not the real image of who I am, all the way in advance, so I just want to bring that out.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm gonna stop there. We're at 10:14. And so the goal of this Bible study is just basically to read through, and we're just gonna dissect, line for line. And we will bounce around and use some of the precepts, because that's what we're told to do. It says precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. But I do want to stay on course, and we're going to read through this. And I do want to say that it will speed up, because once we get to some of the places where we're just talking about people's generations and, stuff like that, there won't be as much to say. But in these first few chapters of Genesis, there is just a whole lot to unpack. And so it does, I'm aware that after 2+ hour sessions, we're only to Genesis 10. I get that. But like I said, there's a lot to unpack in the very beginning. And there will be some of those verses that we're just going to be breezing through. There won't be as much commentary and as much, just as much to say about them. There'll just be more, self-explanatory. But I think it's important that we do take the deep dive into each line, because this is fundamental. There's so much that about our faith that is built upon Torah, as a whole. And so I definitely, I just want to make sure that we cover it.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring this up. Put actually represents Libya.
Oh yeah, yep. My wife said that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Put Libya. But yeah, this is a great job. Good job.
Yeah, this was fun. Definitely, if you guys want to invite anybody else, everybody's welcome. And again, if you feel the need to to dive in and comment, that's welcome also. I actually encourage that. We like the back and forth. We like to see just different aspects, and I also like to see what different people were taught, because I know we're not all from the same walk. Brother Andres, I believe you said you were Catholic before you came into the truth, right?
Yes, yeah. I was
Yep. And a bunch of us, we were Adventists. I know, Chuka was Pentecostal. We have, just different walks, and we were all brought up on different beliefs. And I like to hear those things, because as we go out into the world and evangelize, I like to know my enemy. I like to know, not saying that Christians are my enemy, but Christian doctrine definitely is. And when you look at what they've done to it and the confusion that they've injected into it, I just like to know ahead of time, if I'm going to get into a debate or a conversation with somebody, I want to be able to attack that doctrine and replace it with truth,
Mm-hmm. That's it.
So yeah, this was good. Again, we'll be right back here next week, and we'll be doing it again, 9 o'clock. Again, we can start doing it earlier if everybody wants to. I just wanted to make sure that everybody has time to settle in after Shabbat starts. And, once the sun starts setting earlier, then we can definitely pull it back and do it earlier. But you guys can just let me know. As of right now, I'm fine with 9 o'clock start time.
Yeah, that works.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, brothers, enjoy your Shabbat. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Blessings and peace to all of your families.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah,
Shabbat shalom.